All right, over to you, Gurpreet.
Yeah, thanks. Let me just share my screen. What I'll try to do is do a quick walkthrough of the document, and people who have questions, suggestions, please like stop me at any point in time. And I'll try and like go through all of this possibly in the next 15 minutes, and maybe after that we can take a pause and first see if for the people who are attending the PAT call today, if they want to chime in and add some suggestions, and if we have time post that, then maybe we will do a little bit more deeper dive into the individual priorities that have already been identified. All right. So to start with, let me just bring up the document. Um, at a high level, like Anshu summarized, right, our focus for 2022 has been on Bahmni Light, making it cloud ready, especially Bahmni Light for clinics and small hospitals, so that the feedback that we got was that we wanted Bahmni to there to be a lightweight version of Bahmni that is quick and already configured like 80% of the way. And for that purpose, quite a lot of initiatives were picked up in the year 2022. I will not go into all the details. People can have a look at the list, and all of these have been now sort of rolled into the Bahmni Light release, which is scheduled for this month, and it's all available on Docker Compose as well as AWS. If you look at the overall priorities, and the reason we want to call out priorities is because at the start of the year, it's usually hard to say what are some of the features and enhancements that will get picked up throughout. But if we have certain goals, certain themes, certain priorities that are identified, then we can choose as we understand those problem areas more what are some of the initiatives or features that we want to pick up, right? So first, having a high level North Star in terms of priorities and goals is important. And then once there is a high level agreement on the major priorities, then it becomes easier for us to, prioritize in the wish list of things that what should we be looking at. And these are, again, let's just say 80% of the effort would potentially go into these priorities, but there is still a significant bandwidth that is kept aside for things that prop up from the community or as a result of some major issue. So those are the things that also we look at during the period. Just wanted to check, am I audible and is the network okay, Anshu?
Yeah, perfect.
All right. So if we look at the year 2022, the year that just gone back, these were the high level priorities that we had identified, which was we wanted to have a lightweight version of Bahmni for clinics. And this isn't to say that hospitals cannot adopt it. They can definitely adopt Bahmni Light and get started with Bahmni Light. And then incrementally and slowly, as they feel like, okay, we want to now roll this out to, let's say, the lab, or we want a full-blown ERP package, they're welcome to incrementally also move over from Light to a whole standard version. You can read what is the difference between Bahmni Light and Bahmni Standard on this wiki page. It's already linked in that document, and happy to answer questions as to why these two flavors were chosen. But to some degree, they are the same products, except that one is packaged with clinics and small hospitals in mind, and basically has EMR. It has billing and it has reports, whereas the Bahmni Standard is the package that most people are already familiar with, which is targeted towards hospitals, large hospitals, and it has the full. It's like a hospital information management system, right? So it will not only have EMR, but it would have things like IPD, it would have radiology, it would have Odoo, OpenLS. So the whole Jinbang is part of the legacy package or the standard package now that we are calling it. Both are open source and both are just the same distribution of OpenMRS. It's just that they are pre-configured. And currently Bahmni Light is fully AWS ready and Docker ready, which means that if you want to deploy it on a Kubernetes environment, and that would give you possibly better scalability and easier to maintain, you can directly upgrade now using images rather than using RPM and so on. So quite a lot of effort over the last 1 year has gone in. Notably, there's also now, it's also responsive for the mobile, which means that for the clinical screens as well as for, this is how it used to look earlier. It used to break when you were on like an Android device, but now all of these screens have been made mobile friendly. Registration screens and the clinical screens, these two were our target audiences, to make sure that, if you are accessing Bhamni on the cloud or even within a hospital, you're walking across departments and you want to like open Bahmni, you'll be able to now open it in a responsive manner.
And also one more thing, there are actually currently some projects or some of this thing that we are we have taken where we are moving them from older version of Bamni to actually the new Docker based implementation of Bamni. So we'll be also updating the documentation for those who are moving. There are others in the community already trying it out. David, I saw some of this that you have been posting. It'll probably be great if you can just post it on, create some talk thread and put it over there. It'll be useful for everybody.
Thanks, Ankshu. I'll try and check if we have an existing thread, and if it doesn't exist, I'll just create a new one.
On the security front, also a significant number of security fixes and library upgrades have gone into the current Bahmni Lite release. We've added Trivy scanners to ensure that the images and the libraries that are being used, we are aware of the critical and high issues, and we are proactively ensuring that we are fixing those issues. Also, a lot of the components have been updated, including the biggest update, which is around OpenMRS. The latest version of OpenMRS is now shipped as part of Bahmni, which again, will have a lot of advantages. For instance, the new Fire module that is available along with it. So you start getting Fire-based APIs. You also get a lot of security fixes, a lot of features that come out of the box with OpenMRS. So there have been quite a few significant updates, and if anyone is using Bahmni old, I would significantly stress that you should check out Bahmni Lite, try it out, and then create a plan for eventually upgrading over to the newer version of Bahmni. Okay, so given that 2022, the focus was in making Bahmni, secure, cloud ready, having a lightweight version that is easy to adopt, easy to configure, as well as also ready for India. We wanted to now look at the year 2023 and connect the dots between what is happening in 2022, use that momentum and the work that has been done to capitalize on those gains, as well as ensure that in 2023 there are certain other things which were high priorities, which we also want to make sure we are looking at. So from a 2023 perspective, currently we've listed these as the goals. They are of course all open for discussion. We are in the start of the year, but we wanted to start somewhere, and some seemed like it's a no-brainer, and in other cases maybe we will need to discuss them more. But the first one is about Bahmni Lite itself. Since we've spent so much energy in building a Bahmni Lite version, we want to now ensure that the community understands what is the value that comes from it, how to try it, and also evangelize and strengthen its adoption. And for that reason, the focus on this month specifically is around the release rollout. We are doing extensive testing of the Bahmni Lite release on different platforms along with Docker and AWS. We want to evangelize it post the release, create certain videos that talk about Bahmni Lite, and also conduct community trainings so that people from across the world can join our trainings and get and try out Bahmni, as well as learn how to configure through the initializer module and other ways. And then there will be feedback as people start adopting. We have one partner that is going to roll out Bahmni in India, and we are looking for more partners to roll Bahmni out in India and other countries, as a SaaS offering. And there will be, feedback that will start coming in as clients start to adopt and community starts to adopt Bahmni. So we want to keep bandwidth and be responsive for the bugs or the immediate low hanging fruit enhancements that come out. So Bahmni Light to a degree will be a priority to capitalize on the work that was done in 2022. I'll just pause in case someone wants to add something on Bahmni Light or ask a question around Bahmni Light. Okay, I'll continue. I'm still audible, right, Anshu? Just checking.
Yes, very much.
All right. So the second point is around the UI itself of the app. As we know, Bahmni in 2012 was at that point in time written using Angular, which was the most widely adopted, web framework at that point in time. And over the years, Angular's support has dropped off, and people have moved on. And we want to make sure, even though today there are no issues with Angular and it's running fine, we don't want to, be stuck with Angular. And over the last 1 year, most of the UI development that has happened has already happened in React, which means the new modules that we wrote for lab, they have been written in React using the carbon design system. And also the form designer, which has been around for now 3-4 years, it was also written in React. And so we already have React code running on Angular. And the idea is now moving ahead, we want to start rewriting, especially the consultation app to start with, which is the doctor persona. We want to start using the new tech stack, like a micro front end React tech stack, and also use this as an opportunity to redesign the UX. So that some of the feedback that we've heard earlier, where people have said that, hey, there are too many clicks that are required, for a doctor to be able to perform certain functions in Bahmni. Can we make the experience more seamless, more intuitive? Those are all the things that are part of our focus. So we've got a designer that joined our team 2-3 months ago. He, along with Krishna and the team, are now looking at the redesign and incremental redesign of the UX. So that's step by step. There is both the things that start happening. One is that the UX, you start seeing other UX, experiences kicking in that will make the consultation experience for a clinician easier. And in parallel, the new tech stack will start getting used, so that runs alongside the existing product, and slowly people will get a chance to migrate over to the newer experience. There will be feature toggles that will allow you to control and the rollout of the feature. But basically, the idea is that over the course of this year, we want to replace the existing consultation app with this new app, and then provide a transition path for existing adopters to this new user experience. Anyone wants to add anything to this, or any questions, suggestions?
Yeah, there is also, like, over the last year, we've been investigating a lot of things, right? One is obviously with the OpenMRS 03, we did, quite a comprehensive spike investigations in terms of initially of how we can incrementally move out over there. Then obviously we also built the Lab Lite module, for example, onto this. There is a quite a bit detailed write-up that Noman has done on OpenMRS talk. I'll try to find the link. So if you have any comments in terms of our UI re-architecture approach, please feel free to go and comment over there.
Yeah, this is a preview of the Bahmni Light environment, which is using the design system of OpenMRS, the carbon design system, and some of the components, which was our attempt at adopting some of the OpenMRS designs and components and trying them out with Bahmni. So the whole Lab Light module has been basically written with React.js micro frontend and OpenMRS components, but the OpenMRS components needed significant refactoring for us to be able to adopt it, since our foundational architecture is not the same that Bahmni OpenMRS's UI is using. And therefore, there was some work that we had to do to get these components to work here. But as you can see, the look and feel and the various details, they are Carbon-like or OpenMRS-like. And our look and feel will continue in a way. The new look and feel will adopt these fonts and this look and feel. But the tech stack that we would be writing in to some degree will be a bit different from what is happening in the OpenMRS right now. Our plan is to ensure that OpenMRS community can continue to adopt the components that we publish, and there'll be quite a lot of UI UX discussions as the weeks progress. So be tuned, and if you're interested, please do contribute and join these discussions around the UI design and the tech design both. All right, so I'll move on to the next point, and I'm talking about some of our initial priorities for the first quarter of 2023 only year. I mean, the year is long, and and right now we are looking at things that we know we want to potentially start tackling from the start of the year. We still have, we are open for more inputs and feedback, but this will hopefully be a pretty significant and important, development and design initiative that will be going on throughout the year. So we are hoping for a lot of excitement and inputs around the UX and UI redesign. The third thing is, as I said earlier, right, we've sort of converted the legacy Bahmni into two offerings, two distributions, both open source. One, what we are calling Bahmni Lite for clinics and small hospitals and small facilities, and then Bahmni Standard, which is the full suite which would be used by hospitals. So we want, even though Bahmni Standard is now Docker ready, which means you can use Docker Compose and bring up all the components. Now you don't need to use like an RPM and worry about libraries and binaries. You can easily use Docker Compose and get the latest image and then tag it on it. And if you want to upgrade, you'll just change the tag of the image, and the new image and update will come. So that definitely makes life significantly easier and possibly more secure also. But we also want to make it cloud ready, which means we want to make sure that if you were choosing a Kubernetes environment slash AWS, you have all the automation to make that deployment easier and secure. So that is an area that we want to work on. I think we are done with the EMR and few of the other components, but not all the components are yet cloud ready. So that would be one of the focus areas for this quarter. That is this point. Also, currently Bahmni has been shipping with Odoo, which is V10, which is not a supported version any longer by the Odoo community. And the latest version of Odoo is now at version 16. And what we want to do is we want to kickstart the upgrade so that when Bahmni Standard is released a few months down the line, it comes with the latest version of Odoo. And there, the idea is to do it twofold. First would be to focus on just the integration piece, where if you created a patient in Bahmni, it would create a customer in Odoo. So you do like the bare minimum integration piece first and make that available. And that would be what we're calling phase one with Odoo. And then phase two would be where, for instance, things like auto creation of quotation and some of the existing Bahmni modules which existed within Odoo, we would want to move, or either we will have to find an upgrade path, or we may have to rewrite, considering that Odoo has gone through a significant tech stack upgrade. It's adopted, along with Python now, it's adopted JavaScript, Node.js significantly. So we'll have to do that investigation and see what are the changes needed on the Odoo side. But Odoo is a pretty key component of the whole HIMS offering, and things like stock management, accounting, invoicing, quotation, sales, all of that is like pretty heavily used by Bahmni adopters. So that is why Odoo upgrade for us is an important part of the Bahmni Standard release. We would want Odoo to be upgraded as part of Bahmni Standard. Anshuman or others, do you want to add anything else on Odoo or Bahmni Standard?
No, I think you covered it all at this level. Yeah.
All right. The Bahmni Mart, we just saw a demo already, right? Which is great. The team has already made the key components connected and available, but we would want to extend Bahmni Mart both in like both directions. One is have, out of the box dashboards for hospital and clinic use cases, which would make sense as reference visualizations, as well as also integrate the other databases so that when you are in Bahmni Mart, you have Udo data and you have other components data along with OpenMRS available for analytics use cases. So that would also be part of this, and this is going to be an ongoing thing. As we get more feedback, we come up with better scenarios, we will be adding them, but we want to at least have a minimal set that is available out of the box, so that using that, organizations which have some SQL capability, they or some BI capability, they will be able to use either Metabase or any tool that they are comfortable with, which can speak to a DB. They'll be able to use any BI tool and create, analytics out of the box without having to write ETLs, or without having to, fight with APIs and so on. You'll be able to do analytics more easily. So that's the reason. There are some other points too. As mentioned, we are the OpenLS version that we ship, it is self-managed by us. So we either have an option of moving from OpenLS to OpenLS Global, or to Bika Limbs, which is now also called Senate Limbs. These two, very similar products. Uh, a lot of the community has moved over to Senate Limbs, in fact, and there is also already a reference implementation of Bahmni with Senate Limbs. So we are also tending and leaning towards Senate Limbs because it has very strong integration with various lab analyzers, and it also supports various other, lab related features. So our hope is to move over to Senate Limbs, but the question is still open on whether it will be OpenLS Global or Senate Limbs. We are favoring Senate Limbs currently. There are other upgrades to look at, whether DCM 4G with OVM or OHIF viewer. That also is something that we want to look at, it, especially from a security perspective. We want to make sure that the jars that are shipped with DCM 4G are secure. And with regards to Java, currently we are shipping Amazon's Coreto image JDK, which will also not be supported from a year from now. So we want to make sure that by before end of this year, we have moved all of Bahmni to at least version 11 of Java or higher, so that there is a supported platform. So these are all clearly like, non-negotiables for doing a Bahmni standard release. And that is why they have been listed here. But for the first quarter, the ones in blue are the ones we are looking at working on first, and we'll be opportunistic about the others depending on capacity that is available. The last one is the fact that a lot of Bahmni deployments and EMR now seem to be happening on the cloud, because of a lot of the various cloud providers have been giving, discounts and free cloud services to many NGOs or open source adopters. And in general, also the capability on the cloud has improved across the board. Bahmni is also seeing an adoption, especially of Bahmni Lite on the cloud as a SaaS. And for that, to reduce the cloud maintenance costs and the running costs, we are looking at making Bahmni multi-tenant, especially OpenMRS, because that is a single tenant software right now, which means for every facility, you need one instance of OpenMRS. But that doesn't scale if you have, like 20 facilities and you're like expecting to use 20 instances of OpenMRS. It doesn't scale both from costs perspective, neither from a maintenance perspective, especially since a software like EMR, people are not like, interacting with it continuously. They are speaking to a patient and then, briefly entering data. So the load on the server is usually much lesser, and it's easy for a single instance OpenMRS to potentially connect and support, multiple facilities to the same software. So multi-tenancy has been high on our radar, especially for SaaS-based deployments, where it feels like, or even if it's like a statewide deployment where you have 20 facilities or 30 facilities or more, wanting to use Bahmni, it would make sense for us to choose multi-tenancy. And that's where some of the research work on OpenMRS has started. But there is some way to go for it. I'll pause here in the interest of time. I'm sure if you've got anything you wanted to add.
Yeah, some actually stuff are already happening. What do you see, for example, OCL integration, right? Like, we are already leveraging this. For example, if you are using Bahmni Lite, right, it already comes with packaged with a metadata dump from the OCL. We'll probably keep looking in terms of, hey, maybe initially we use some sort of a pre-seeded database with the dump this thing, and subsequently probably even synchronize, like, just to keep regular updates as such. Right now, this is being loaded by the initializer, but we might change. So standardizing on the data part will be an ongoing effort. We'll opportunistically also look into this. Like, one of the things that we did is, like, through the Bahmni Lite, when we said, okay, this is the tentatively the kind of configurations that and the packaging that's, like, Bahmni Lite will come with. Let's take this opportunity. Let's look at the data elements. Let's package them, for example, in a manageable way. So that work will keep on happening on the side. Certain things obviously will be BAU. All right, we are actually last year we put it's a lot of emphasis on security side. Again, not that, like, we need to figure out everything. There are already tools. For example, how do you make it visible? How do you make it part of the development process? How do you make sure that we get the alerts at the right time? And specifically around this, OpenMRS upgrade was also a crucial thing. So these are going to be by default, right? These are going to be, we're not going to take our foot off the pedal at all. This is going to be business as usual, as in, like, keep things upgraded, keep an eye on the configuration, security, keep an eye on in terms of the, say, how do you do effectively or better effective management of the metadata, etc.
Great. So I'll stop sharing the screen right now. I just wanted to see there are a few folks who joined today. Maybe if someone wants to share some thoughts on the roadmap or priorities or ask some questions. I see there is Mumin who's there, there's Imdad who's there, and Daniel is there, and David. Do you have any thoughts, any suggestions, anything you want to share today?
Hello.
Yes, hey Imdad, we can hear you.
Do you have any plan of one-page prescription for doctors?
Sorry, could you repeat that? Can you just repeat your question? Any plan for?
One-page prescription process, as we have many tabs in Bahmni system, and doctor wants that all in one page, and they want disease-based template as well. Has Bahmni community any plan that?
Right. So actually, as part of our redesign, the first part of redesign that we picked up this month is the consultation piece, which is once you are in the patient dashboard. Today, what happens is we end up going into the consultation screen, right? Let me just share my screen. So the short answer to your question is yes, it is in our plan. But how is it going to look like? That's all under discussion. So I'm just showing the screen and validating that this is what you are asking. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, I can.
So in the clinical, I think the feedback that doctors are possibly giving to us is that here today, to be able to do something, firstly we have to go into consultation. Then within consultation, there are all these various tabs, and then within the medication, there is quite a lot of, I guess, clicks that you have to do before you can get one medicine to show up here. Is my understanding correct? Is that
Yes,
compliment in a way?
right.
Right. So and this is why we actually chose the consultation as as the first piece that we are doing the redesign of, and that is because all these steps, the general feedback has been that it takes time to actually add a medicine, and we want to be able to do that faster. So one of the steps that we are taking, and we're just like in our initial design phase right now, is that we are adding certain shortcuts on this screen itself, where you will be able to do all the actions that you could do from here inside, right? These actions. So instead of being able to do them from here, which will remain, we are not removing them for the time being. We are adding certain, we're discussing designs to add them here itself, where you could potentially say add a drug, right, or add an investigation, and so on. And there will be like a modal that will come up, which allows you to quickly fill that information and paste it here itself. So we have started currently with the diagnosis screen first, so that you can enter a diagnosis quickly from the dashboard. Post the diagnosis screen, we will then look at which is the next one that we can pick up. Medications is the one that we believe has the highest UX impact, which is that it is the most often used and possibly is the most painful right now. So if the medications tabs problem could be solved, then that would like that would basically help the clinicians the most. So this one is is like the highest in our radar, but we just started with something a bit easier first, so that architecturally we are good, then we will be picking up medications. So yes, it is on our roadmap for this year.
Thank you. There was another question about the disease template. Is there any plan of making disease-based template for doctors?
Could you elaborate a little bit more on when you say disease-based templates? What are some of the things that you're looking at as
Like
templates?
if doctors want that he will enter feel like fever, and some are common advices and chief complaints or other things will be added in the prescription, and he will add or subtract any options he wants to.
Right. Yeah, actually, so we got multiple different feedbacks on what you are saying. So we got a different, let's say, 3, 4 different categories of like solution paths. So one is what you I think said, which is if I let's say enter COVID-19 as a diagnosis, one option could be that the drugs for COVID-19 get added automatically, and then you go and edit them because because the doctor has already specified a set of medications for COVID-19. So that could be one way that this could happen. The other way that this could potentially happen is, for instance, if I'm on the medication screen, let me just select this once. So right now we have a feature called order sets, which allows you to basically search for COVID drugs and then add the set of COVID drugs in one shot. But it is not usually a very often used feature. One of the feedback we got was that in the drug name, if I could, for instance, enter COVID and get my COVID predefined set here itself, and I could say add, then that set could come here, right? Like for a
Right,
disease set,
right.
I've defined a set, and that could come here. So that is something that we are going to look at when we are doing the medication tab redesign, where you could do 2, 3 different things. One is you could define an order set type of a set, and with the order set, the idea was to go not just for medication but also for investigations, right? So you could say that I'm now choosing the COVID order set, which means get the COVID test also done, but start with these drugs for now until the test comes, and get the CBC test also done, kind of a thing, so that you can combine medications as well as investigations in one set and put it together. So that has been one thing that feels like it can help in reduce the time for a doctor. And the other one was around templates in terms of the consultation notes itself, right? So for
Yes.
instance, right, so when you're in the notes screen and entering a note, right now it's all plain text. One of the other feedback we got was that if we had by disease different templates that were predefined, then those templates could potentially kick in, which says here is the note, here are some of the medications, here are some of the investigations. So you're kind of creating for a doctor like a different set, and saying these set of actions, just execute them or at least fill them, and then I will review and fix them. So these are all part of our consultation redesign part, right? That's why this piece has been picked up, and that is why we are not only doing a UI rewrite, because UI rewrite would just mean tech shift, but we want to change the experience. So the feedback that you're giving, I think, is things that we want to hear more of. If you could send, like add in the talk thread or fill the form, or just share some thoughts on how you think that experience can work, and share some examples. Like I shared the COVID example, but if there are some other
Yes,
examples
certainly.
where
I can share some example of private hospitals also using in our country. And many we are actually implementing Bahmni in government hospitals, and they are requiring these requirements again and again. But we are being unable to add these requirements on thread. So it's a high time to do this. I think I will share my
yeah,
thoughts, inshallah. Thank you.
great. Thank you very much, Imdad.
I just wanted to say that, like, bring that we are actually well over time. And this is not going to get over on this call, right? Like, we want to take this month to, hear from the community, absorb this. Even the, for example, like, right now, what Gurpreet just talked about, we're just initially brainstorming, right? Like, we have done certain user research, we have certain, like, say, ideas as such. Now some click through prototype or some designs, like, will be created, feedback solicited, and for example, we'll go from there. So please keep engaging. I don't know if there is any other comments. If you do, I would request, like, if you can post it, like, onto the talk thread, or send us feedback, and definitely join the next PAT call, where we'll probably be devoting a lot of time just to, go through these clarifications, or even discussing what feedbacks we have heard, how we can consider yours, whether you're bringing in, like, other sort of requirements that we haven't even thought about, but it is extremely valuable. Right. So yeah, so look, keep like, engaging with us in the next PAT call as well. We'll continue with the same roadmap discussions this entire month, like, we'll continue like that.
Cool. Yeah. Next part call sounds good.
All right. So thanks, everybody. Thanks for staying back. I will upload right, the recording onto the YouTube, and also post it onto the talk thread. But now that you have, like, some context, I would request all of you to please engage with us. Please provide us your feedbacks, your thoughts, your requirements. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.